Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the top side deck cards for April 2022 based off the meta breakdowns that I do every single weekend that there are events. So yeah, there's not a lot of events going on this month in April, but for your locals, it's still going to be a good video to reference. Even if you're playing a best of one locals, you can still reference this video and maybe play, main deck text based on what your local meta is playing. But even then, a lot of locals are actually playing sideboard best of one now, so I think it's a great change. This video will help you out with that. But anyways, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss Dragon Ball Super video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, many ways down in the description to do so. But today, if you guys are looking for custom sleeves, playmats, any TCG accessories like that, use my link in the description to yourplaymat.com. Not only will you get 10% off your order down there, but their stuff's so high quality, guys. I talk about them all the time. I absolutely love their art sleeves. Biggest thing about them is they don't peel, and that is such a huge draw to art sleeves for me. It's amazing. Anyways, again, 10% off your order down with the link in the description. Let's get into the video. All right, so we're starting off with the more generic stuff first. First thing is Koitsukai. My opinion, this is the best side deck card in the current meta. If you're playing a strict best of one locals, I would not blame you for main decking this card. It's so good. Like, it's off color in a lot of decks, but it's still just that good because there are so many floodgates. Robotic Riposte, Topo Righteous Aid, Oceanus in black. There are so many floodgates that pretty much every single color is playing. Not to mention how good this card is against the King Piccolo deck as a whole. It's just that good. But if you're playing blue, I strongly recommend Isekai Keeping Watch. This is essentially blue's version of Koitsukai that costs one. It only bottom decks one card per turn though when they play a guy during your turn, but you draw a card off of this. And if you're playing a mono blue deck, this is an incredible turn one play because it's a draw one. Like if you guys played Dragon Ball Super back in the day and like the set 1 through 5 days, having a turn one draw one was super important. So we have that here again. I did actually post a mono blue Soul Striker list that plays 4 copies of this card again because we're playing mono blue, we're not charging multi turn one, and we can play this, draw a card, and it happens to just be incredibly good in this format. So strongly recommend Isekai if you're playing blue. Otherwise, Koitsukai in your side deck or main deck is very good right now. Then we have all the different Realm of the Gods cards. So these cards are such a good utility side deck option for most decks. A lot of decks are even maining them. Like in my Soul Striker list that I mentioned, I'm maining 3 copies of Beerus, but a lot of red decks are and should be siding Realm of the Gods Ultra Instinct. The greatest thing about all these cards are they offer you removal for 1 energy on very big battle cards. At least that's what a lot of their offensive abilities do. And then defensively, you get lots of different effects, right? So for Realm of the Gods Beerus Destroys, you get removal on a 2-drop or less, which is incredible for blue because a lot of blue server bullets are 2 drops or less. And then you have Realm of the Gods, which is basically just a super combo for 1 energy on defense, which is great. The other ones do slightly different things. Again, most of them act as removal for larger, cheated cost battle cards, and then all their defensive effects are pretty different. The one thing about these cards though is that they are activate battle, so that can be just a little bit awkward. So you want to heavily consider what you need these cards and what role you need them to play. And if they don't necessarily make the most sense in your deck, you can always play Max Power Kamehameha. These cards are all very similar to Max Power, but Max Power has that activate main timing, so you don't have to rely on a battle going through for that to work. And if you're playing yellow, for example, and your card is a black Kamehameha, you don't have that Max Power-esque effect, right? And if you really want to be able to remove things like Sin 9-drop, the 8-drop Goku in U7, for example, maybe Thwarting the Dark Empire Gogeta, Max Power is a great option for you to have there, just as a couple examples. But yeah, I mean, again, you have to look at your deck. You have to really determine what role you need this card to play, and then determine if Max Power is better for you, or if your color of choices Realm of the Gods Destroy card is the way to go. Then we have Secret Identity Masked Sand. Okay, so there was quite a long time where Secret ID was just the de facto Overrealm. Before that, it was Fighting Against Fates, and I think we're kind of making a trend back towards Fighting Against Fates, but I'm not going to be surprised if I see any deck list maining Fates or Secret ID. They're just both that good. But Secret ID is definitely warranted in your sideboard if you're not maining it. Decks like U7 Goku, you can pick up a lot of value. A lot of times you can actually kill 3 to 4 battle cards with 1 Secret ID if they have like a 3-drop and 3 1-drops, or a 4-drop and 2 1-drops. That's very good there. Against King Piccolo, you're taking out 2 of their 3-cost threats usually. Again, maybe like a piano, maybe another 1-drop for extra value. That's great. This is an excellent sideboard card to have in your arsenal. Again, if you're maining like a Fighting Against Fates and you want to have that removal option in your sideboard. Then we have Protector of the People. Okay, so we are trending more towards an aggressive meta. Thankfully, nothing crazy like we've seen in the past where you have like turn 1, turn 2 kills. But it is still good to have a stocked up Protector of the People in your sideboard if your deck is a bit slower, maybe struggles against aggro, and you're not playing a blue deck where you have access to Senzu Bean. Protector of the People is that generic type of Senzu Bean, albeit does cost you a discard, but that 5k ramps every single time you're attacked by a battle card, so that's where that value comes from. But yes, this is a great card to have at your disposal. Maybe you're playing, I don't know, an Invoker, maybe you're playing a Sin that just like can't really deal with tons of battle cards coming at you. Protector of the People is a great option for that. Then we have Dark Power Black Mass Sand. Okay, so I always talk about this card, and yes, it is getting worse and worse over time, mostly because it's a 1-drop without protection, but there are still tons of decks that it hits, and it's also looking like a really good card in set 17, looking like it'll hit more decks in that set as well. But the main reason I'm recommending this is because it's one of the only really good sideboard cards that I can come up with for the yellow Trunks deck, which just won its first event a weekend or two ago and is seeming to pick up more popularity. This card is very, very good against them turn 1 because they're yellow. They don't necessarily have like, you know, sniping removal like minus 5k or just straight up kill something. The card usually has to be in rest mode for them to remove it, right? So if you can stick BMS turn 1, that's great because they're going to have a little bit of a hard time getting rid of it until about turn 3, turn 4. They would have to play like their Trunks Unison +0 to kill this if they want to tap out for that on 3, but that could lead to its own kind of pool of problems, right? I will say, like, after turn 1, BMS is a lot worse, so keep that in mind. Like, you pretty much can't play BMS if they ever had their Trunks blocker established, which again is why this is really good turn 1. But if you do stick at turn 1, their leader effect is pretty much null and void. They're not going to be playing 1-drops from their drop area, so that's great. Another option you could look at for the Trunks matchups specifically is any sort of cheap barrier removal you can play, and I know for a lot of colors you're looking for at least 3 energy to pull off some barrier removal, which is not the most cost efficient against that deck because they're playing their barrier threats for 1 energy. So you do want to keep that in mind. If you're playing green, you should have pretty cheap barrier removal, but green's not all that popular right now, so I did want to just mention like a more generic option that is good against Trunks, as well as like other random rogue matchups like, I don't know, AOD, Red Bulma. It is decent against those types of decks that can't remove it within the first 2 to 3 turns very, very effectively. So always want to point out where BMS can shine in a given meta. Then we have Food Arc Banisher. Okay, so this is a card that we've seen in a few topping lists that I've profiled here on the channel, and I do think this card is very, very good right now. Don't get me wrong, it's not just like the auto slam that Fu, Shrouded in Mystery was, but there are many, many matchups that can't really effectively deal with this card. Look at red decks, for example. Not all red decks are playing Jiren Unison, and if they're not, this card is virtually unstoppable against red decks. Like, they can't do anything to prevent it hitting play. You can swing with it. Maybe they'll Violent Raise, but they'll pay 3 cards for that Violent Raise, as well as any other cards they might have to pay if you have like a Unison swinging or a leader swinging or a smaller battle card swinging. Just as an example, green can't really do anything to stop this unless they use a preemptive Big Amore. Blue and yellow, you got to be a little bit careful, but if you can deal with their Unisons, you can play this guy and, you know, pretty much clean up the game. I do think this is a great sideboard card for slower matchups if you can get it down appropriately. Then we have Dirty Burst. This is probably my favorite sideboard card in blue right now because I'm personally just maining Isekai, right? This card is just so good. Like, against red, they have Vegeta Resolve Renewed, which would interrupt any of your battle card counterplays. So you play Dirty Burst, for 2 energy, you draw a card, they can't attack with 7 costs or more. That is so good against their Goku boss monster, their Vegeta SCR. Pretty much every SCR in the game, Cell Xeno, Pan, Supreme Kai of Time, the Fu we just looked at, it's really great against that as well, and it's non-interactable. So this is a great form of defense for blue decks. If you're playing blue, definitely got a sideboard 2 copies, maybe even main 1, side 1 in my opinion. Then we have Vegeta Unison of Fury. So very similar to Dirty Burst, this is yellow's answer to big battle card threats. So again, looking at the same matchups like Yusef and Goku, they can't attack with their 3s and 4 drops until those turns. They also can't attack with their 8-drop Goku practically ever, as long as you can keep this guy on the board. That's great. Gogeta Xeno can't attack with their Gogetas. That's also excellent. This card is a really solid card in yellow right now. Definitely want to keep it in mind if you're playing yellow Trunks, if you're playing Sin Shenron. This is a great turn 2 play as well to kind of alleviate a lot of that aggro. And then finally, guys, we have Vegito Unison of Might, a very, very interesting red tech that my team has kind of been putting me onto. Like I mentioned before, Aggro is not as fast as it once was. Decks like King Piccolo, decks like U7 Goku, they are typically winning on turn 4. And if you're playing against a more experienced player or you're playing against a slower deck, the game is going to be dragged out even further. So if you're playing red, you have plenty of time in those types of matchups to slam Unison of Fury, and just about every deck in the game is affected by Unison of Fury's -2. Your opponent can't play battle cards by skills, and then it's 20k Unison, so it's pretty likely to survive, especially if you cleared your opponent's board. They can't play new cards by skills. There's just about no way this card's actually going to die for the most part, unless they want to like swing at it with their leader and then combo into it, but even then you can always negate the attack, of course. Point is, this card can be very, very good in the right matchups, especially against those stallier decks, like maybe Invoker, like maybe Sin Shenron, maybe Red Mirrors, stuff like that. But anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below what you guys are siding or main deck teching for this format. I'll see you guys in the next video.